There's a specific kind of heat you only find in the Japanese countryside during mid-August. It isn't just a temperature, it's a weight. It's the kind of afternoon where the air feels like it's made of static, and the sound of the aborigine, the large brown cicadas, becomes a wall of noise so thick you can almost touch it. I remember the smell most of all. Hot asphalt, stagnant water from the irrigation canals, and that strange, metallic tang the sun leaves on everything it touches. I was staying at my grandfather's house that summer. It was a place of perfect green geometry, surrounded by rice fields that seemed to go on forever. My grandfather wasn't a man for ghost stories. He was practical, grounded in the soil. But that morning, as I stepped out onto the porch, he didn't look at me. He just stared out at the shimmering horizon and said something I didn't quite understand at the time. "If you see something white wiggling in the distance," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the cicadas, "don't try to understand what it is. Just look at your feet until it goes away." He didn't explain why. He just walked back into the house, leaving me alone with the sun and a warning that felt far too heavy for such a bright, beautiful day. I tried to follow his advice for a while. I focused on the mundane things, the way the sweat cooled instantly on my neck when a rare breeze passed, or the rhythmic humming of a distant transformer. But curiosity isn't something you can just turn off. I found myself looking out at the fields again. Everything was still. Every blade of rice was frozen in the dead, sweltering air. But then, right in the center of the greenest field, I saw it. It was a thin, paper-white sliver. At first, I thought it was a plastic sheet caught on a pole, or maybe a stray heron. But it wasn't standing still. It was wiggling. It moved with a frantic, rubbery elasticity, like a person dancing at double speed, yet it didn't seem to have any limbs. It was just a shape, oscillating against the horizon. The contrast was what made my stomach turn. The entire world was paralyzed by the heat, but this thing moved as if it were standing in the middle of a hurricane. I realized my eyes were starting to water from the intensity of the stare. I tried to blink, but the image stayed. Even weirder, the visual floaters in my eyes, those tiny specks that drift when you look at a bright sky, seemed to be syncing up with its movement. It was a visual glitch in a world that was supposed to be real. That's when the world broke. You know that sound cicadas make? That constant deafening drone, it stopped. Not gradually, but instantly. It was as if someone had reached out and cut a cable. The silence that followed was so loud it caused a physical throbbing in my ears. I couldn't hear the wind. I couldn't hear my own breathing. I could only hear a faint, wet sound. A rhythmic thwack like a damp cloth being whipped against a stone. It wasn't coming from the air. It felt like it was vibrating through the wooden porch floor straight into my bones. The white figure in the distance began to change. It grew taller, thinner. Its wiggling wasn't rhythmic anymore. It was a series of violent, joint-snapping spasms. It looked like it was unfolding itself, revealing layers of impossible movement. I knew I should look away. I remembered my grandfather's voice. But there was this oily, intrusive curiosity bubbling up in my chest. I needed to know what it was. I needed to rationalize it so I could stop being afraid. My hand moved on its own, reaching for the old, heavy binoculars sitting on the porch table. They were cold, despite the heat. I brought them to my eyes. The metallic click of the focus wheel sounded like a gunshot in that absolute 0 decibel vacuum. But the world through the lenses was a blur of green and white until I turned the wheel. And then I saw it. The thing wasn't a solid object at all. It was a mass of white, human-like appendages, hundreds of them twisting and folding in directions that shouldn't exist. It defied every rule of geometry I knew. It was moving so fast that its form seemed to strobe, flickering between existence and something else. And then I saw the face. It wasn't a face, really. It was a featureless, vibrating void where a head should be. It was screaming. I couldn't hear it with my ears, but I could feel it in my soul, a high-pitched, piercing frequency that shattered every filter my brain had for making sense of the world. In that moment, I understood. I didn't see a monster. I saw a truth that the human mind isn't built to hold. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Instead, I felt a strange, bubbling sensation in my throat. A low, rhythmic giggle started to escape my lips. It was a perfect match for the entity's wiggling speed. My pupils dilated until the world was nothing but that white, spasming shape. The binoculars slipped from my hands, hitting the floor and shattering. The last thing I remember seeing in the reflection of the broken glass was the field, turning a deep, sickly shade of violet. My brother told me later that they found me on the porch 3 hours later. My eyes were wide open, and my body was twitching in a rhythmic, rubbery sync with the empty fields. They call it kuru in the village. It's not a haunting. It's a visual virus. Once you understand how it moves, your brain never stops trying to mimic it. It's like a song you can't get out of your head, except the song is a physical seizure of the soul. I'm better now, they say. I can hold a conversation. I can eat. But sometimes when the room gets too quiet or the sun hits a white wall just right, I feel that wiggle starting in the back of my mind. It's waiting for me to look again, and honestly, I think it's waiting for you too. Did you see it? Just now in the corner of your screen? That little white flicker you thought was just a compression artifact. Don't try to focus on it. Don't try to understand why it's moving that way. Because the Kunekune doesn't need to touch you to destroy you. It just needs you to look. It's already looking for your focus. Just look at your feet until it goes away.